The president of the United States of America, doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Biden or Trump before him or Eisenhower or Lincoln, whoever's in the White House, we expect them to defend American people. We expect them to be everybody's president, not just the side that voted for them and, throw the other ones out in the trash. We expect them, again, whether you're Republican or Democrat or an independent, Green Party, whatever, you expect the president, once he's elected, to be the governor for the people, all of us, and to have our good. That's the way it's supposed to be. That should be a right of expectation of every American. Even if you dislike the president, there's an expectation that he's actually looking out for your good, as best he can, even if he's got a different philosophy or mindset. Now, President Biden is the one in charge right now. He's the one in the White House. Now, before I continue on here, you can tell by the title of this that the question is he demonizing Americans or is he defending Americans? Now, before I get into the heart of this, I want to give you a real quick background on my experience with Biden, because I don't want anybody to think that, you hate President Biden, because I definitely don't. When I was a lowly Senate staffer in the late 1970s, I was working for Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison of Texas. I was here in D.C., and there was at the time a big issue going on with NATO expansion. And I had just come out of a military tour. Actually, I was a reservist at the time, but I'd come out of a military tour at the U.S. European Command in Stuttgart, Germany. And so I was fresh off of being in the military in Europe. And so NATO expansion was the big issue of the day. And so the Senate was debating heavily whether they should authorize NATO expansion or whether they should not authorize it. And Senator Hutchison was a staunch opponent of the NATO expansion, as was I, because I thought, look, the Cold War is over. The Soviet Union has disintegrated. There is no Warsaw Pact. Everything that we were arrayed against is now gone. Let's turn a new page and start something new. So that's why I went to work for Senator Hutchison. I was so excited. Now, I was just a lowly staffer. I was what they called a legislative correspondent at the time. And that means basically you do a lot of the mail stuff, and you do a little bit here and there. I would, because of my combat experience, I was, called upon to help write a few of her op-eds and, do some background or whatever. And because of my recent experience in my stated position on NATO expansion, she was going to go and debate on the Senate floor one day. And in my whole term, I only got to go on the Senate floor with the senator to help her out one time. And it was when she was making a big speech. Well, it turns out that her opponent that day was then Senator Joe Biden. And he was talking his side, and she would make a comment. And they actually went back and forth a few times. And I'll never forget that when she spoke, and then she sat down, and then Biden spoke, and then she was going back up to speak. And when she was talking, I wrote a couple of things of here's what you can say in response. And so I'm sitting on basically a back bench, and then Biden comes over to sit next to his aide, like about 10 feet away from me. And, here's the opponent, whatever, but he looks over at me knowing for sure who I am. He smiles and said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I thought, wow, I've always heard that members of Congress from the different parties don't like each other, but here he's being nice to me. Nobody. I mean, I'm just literally as low as you can get. And yet he was very friendly to me and very respectful. And that left a real impression on me. I was really appreciative of that. Now you fast forward, I went back to regular active duty after 9/11. And I was sent to Afghanistan in 2005, and then a second time in 2010. Well, as it turns out, I was friends with a certain person who worked in the White House, and then Vice President Biden came to Afghanistan to visit the base where I was stationed, where my headquarters was in Bagram Air Base, and he gave me this. My friend introduced us back door, so again he gave me this little coin here. And Gary, if you can bring up a close up of that so people can see what we're talking about here. This is a coin that then Vice President Biden gave to me, and I was so appreciative, and he was really nice, and we had a little short conversation, and then I went on and I thought, well, again, wow, look, I'm just an obscure guy. I'm not a general or anything like that, and yet here he was, taking some time to talk to me, and again, he was very friendly. So I had a really good view of him as a person. And whether I agree with his policies or not, I mean, he was a good man, and so I saw consistency of how he thought about people and how he treated people. So that was my background with President Biden. Now, in the 2020 election, it was obviously very heated. And on the 1st of November, it wasn't actually election night, it was a couple of nights later, when finally enough votes had come in and all of the networks finally called it and said, Joe Biden is now the president-elect of the United States. And he went on this speech. And frankly, my wife and I were both watching, and we were very encouraged because we heard him say this.
I'm a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. I'll work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as those who did. Let this grim era of demonization in America begin to end here and now. The refusal of Democrats and Republicans to cooperate with one another, it's not some mysterious force beyond our control. It's a decision, a choice we make. And if we can decide not to cooperate, then we can decide to cooperate. And I believe that this is part of the mandate given to us from the American people.
I thought, wow, awesome. That's definitely our mandate. We definitely want the president of the United States to work with everybody for all of our good. I want him to defend everybody. Now, a couple of nights ago, from the Oval Office, President Biden gave another speech, and he said some things that, again, sound very, very uplifting and very hopeful. Here's what he said.
We have to be honest with ourselves. In recent years, too much hate has given too much oxygen, fueling racism, the rise of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. Right here in America, I want you to know I see you. You belong. And I want to say this to you. You're all America. You're all America. This is in a moment, in moments like these, when fear and suspicion, anger and rage run hard, that we have to work harder than ever to hold on to the values that make us who we are. We're a nation of religious freedom, freedom of expression. We all have a right to debate and disagree without fear of being targeted in schools or workplaces or in our communities. I must renounce violence and vitriol. See each other not as enemies, but as fellow Americans.
See each other as fellow Americans. We're free to disagree and not to be targeted or not to be demonized. Those are great words. And again, that's what I expect of any president of the United States. I don't care what party he's from. I don't care what party you're from. I expect the president to look after your interests, to defend the core of American values, which is freedom of speech, freedom of the ability to have your own mind and your own thought. That's what we expect. Unfortunately, that's not the only message that the president gives, because just a few months back, unfortunately, he dropped this bomb.
And there's something dangerous happening in America now. There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. The MAGA movement. Not every Republican, not even a majority of Republicans adhere to the MAGA extremist ideology. I know because I've been able to work with Republicans my whole career. But there's no question that today's Republican Party is driven and intimidated by MAGA Republican extremists. This MAGA threat is a threat to the brick and mortar of our democratic institutions.
So 1 minute, Americans get the ability to have difference of opinion and to share their views and to have freedom of speech without fear of being targeted, as long as you agree with me. Now, if you have a different view than I do, now suddenly I'm going to target you. Is there any more clear conveyance from the president of the United States that he's taken not just some fringe movement, but what he calls the MAGA extremist? Okay, look at the last election results, those ones from 2020. 74 million Americans voted for the guy who ran on Make America Great. Okay, so that means that the majority of those people bought into that ideology. Now, I can assure you that no person who was a Trump supporter or who voted for him would hear that and go, well, he's not talking about me. He must be talking about them. Most people are going to think you're talking about me. That if I didn't vote for you, if I voted for Trump, then all of a sudden I'm marginalized and I'm a threat to our democracy. I assure you that's the message people hear. So there's no healing the soul of America in that. There's no bringing people together. That is increasing the divide, and it is driving people in further and further apart, making it more and more difficult for us to even do business together. Now, This is not some anti-democratic party thing. Let me just tell you that, because there's going to be another episode we're going to do here shortly where we're going to look at the Republican dysfunction in Congress. But all this is together is, and the reason we're making all of these videos is because here at Deep Dive, we want you to have a deeper understanding of all the things that are facing us. And right now, it's the political elite who are causing problems in America. It's not just Democrats. It's not just Republicans. It's the whole category of things. And they're forgetting who put them there. They're forgetting why they're there. They're there for our interest. Yes, we have different parties that go, that come into elections at any given time and rise and fall. And those things shouldn't matter, because whoever gets in is supposed to be, and this means Congress as well as the White House, working for your interest, for the interest of the country, not just for their party, not just to do things the way that their side wants to, but that the people benefit. Now, we need diversity of views. We need to have, so that sometimes maybe this viewpoint is more appealing. And maybe this is the direction the country mostly wants to go in there. That's what a democracy is. And so we go that way until the next election. You have a chance to undo that, and you have a chance to bring your side in. That's what we've done for a quarter of a century. I'm sorry, 250 years. So, a quarter of a millennia. Sorry, we've done that for a long time, and it's worked fine. Now, all of a sudden, we're on the rocks, folks. This is more serious than you think, because if we lose the ability to even effectively govern, if we can't even pass a budget, if the president of the United States can't say, hey, I'm defending all of our people, not just the ones who agree with me, we've got serious troubles. And that's something that we need to pay a lot more attention to. And we, the regular people, the normal Americans, need to say, look, I don't want you guys who are on the extreme of any political side holding the whole rest of the country hostage. You need to get your stuff together. You guys need to realize that you work for us, not the other way around, or that we're not even considered. We're not even in the scope of consideration. It's like the American people are only, the voters are like, we'll pay attention to you when it comes to election day, because I need you to stay in power. I still have to have that. But then once you get the election over, you go in and do whatever you want to do until a few months before the next election. And then you try to convince everybody that they're the evil ones, they're demons, and that, man, you need me because I'm the only one that's going to defend your right. But unfortunately, and this is the right or the left, again, these are equal problems right now. They want to tell you that they're a threat to our democracy. But boy, you better come to us because we're the only ones that can save you, so that whichever side ends up winning, they continue to demonize the other side and then lord it over them. And who's the loser in this? You are. I am. Regular American people. And now we're seeing it starting to graphically play out. Now, there's a lot more to this, and we're going to go into it in subsequent events. But you need to understand that this is not a Republican and Democrat thing. This is our system of governance. This is something that, if it goes far enough, it can be an existential crisis for us from within. And that is the most important thing. We're always looking at, threats. Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it nuclear war? Is Iran going to get nuclear weapons? Those are things that need to be discussed. But folks, I'm telling you, the bigger threat, the bigger risk is what's going on inside of our country. And if we don't get to the point to where at least what Biden said aspirationally in November 2020, that we need to we need to make a decision to actually put our differences aside and recognize that we sink or we fall together. And you can't point to the other side and say they're the demons and then want to do some, whether political or otherwise, harm to them and think that we're going to be okay. We're not. You understand that? We're not. However we are defined, whether it's right or left, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, if we don't all figure out how to get this right, we're all going to go down together, and we'll go down with our hands around each other's throats. Folks, I love this country. I served it for over 21 years through 4 active combat deployments, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat, wouldn't even hesitate to defend your interests, because I love all Americans. But I'm telling you, we're going down a bad road right now, and we need to fix this. We, the regular people, got to get this fixed. And if our leaders can't do it, then we need to bring some others in from whatever party you're from. If you're a Democrat, cool, bring some good Democrats in. If you're a Republican, awesome, bring some good Republicans in who care about the country above their party. Parties have a place in this. Parties are good because they coalesce around people who have the same mentality and the same general vision for America. But once you get into power, you've got to be caring about everybody. And I need to see a lot more of that. And I know you do too, because all of us depend on it. So I'm a little bit emotional on this today, because I want my country to be better for our current generation and for those that are coming up. And we all have a role in this. So if even in your own heart, even just within your purview, this small little window of experience that you have and the ability to influence those around you, let's start recognizing that this is one country and that we rise or we fall together, folks. That's the truth of it. That's your deep dive today. Keep watching because we got more of this coming. Thanks. We'll see you next time.